long, but it can't. Our featured presenter today is Dr. Ivy Pruss. She is a naturopathic doctor, also a clinical herbalist. She has her own skincare line, and Ivy, I can't do it justice. I mean, I looked at your bio, amazing. Mom, wife, I mean, you do it all. So you are truly a Renaissance gal. Today, we're going to be talking about epigenetics, and you're going to kind of simplify that for us. And we have a few questions for you, doctor, as well as I'm just excited to get to know you better. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself to our audience, and then we'll have some good discussion on epigenetics and then the impact on our health.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on with you, Tracy. I'm very glad to be here with you guys. I hope that you can take a lot of this information and a lot of this content and use it to work on going towards a better quality of life. So as Tracy said, I am a traditional naturopathic doctor. I also have a doctorate in clinical herbalism. And for me, this has been my life for the past 16 years. So I am just very excited to be able to work with people, help people. That has been a dream of mine for a very long time. I just didn't see myself doing it now. So this is kind of the little wrench in my life. I thought I would pursue this when my children were all grown and married and out of my home, but it just ended up happening now, and God provided ways and opened up doors for me to get it done now, and it just has been a blessing since day one. So I am a mom to 5, and I just had our 5th. He's 6 months old now. And enjoying this juggling of life. I don't think I'd have it any other way. So I'm very excited to jump in today on our topic. We're going to be discussing epigenetics, the value and the importance of it in our daily lives, how it affects us, and what we can do to get the best possible outcome. And I am just very excited to get started. So,
Okay.
All right. So we're going to learn about epigenetics today. And because we're going to learn about epigenetics, we have to have a very, very fast crash course on DNA. So we're going to do a very quick DNA 101. And DNA, basically, deoxyribonucleic acid. That's where DNA comes from. So what that is, it's nucleic acid that contains the genetic instructions for development and function of our cells, okay? One of the main roles of DNA in cells is long-term storage of information. We often call this a blueprint because it's like a map to the person. Genes are DNA segments that carry genetic information. And we know that genes have a profound influence on the way that the body utilizes nutrients from consumption all the way through elimination. So good. We got our little crash course of DNA 101 out of the way.
Well, I'm going to stop you there because that's really an interesting statement. I don't think people realize the role of DNA in utilizing nutrients. So this is how we're all connecting it back, right?
Yes, yes. So one of the most vital important things is if we understand humans, for us to maintain life, we have to consume nutrients, right? So everything that we consume is information. A lot of people don't view it that way, so they don't understand why eating artificial, chemically laden food is really not good. And the results are definitely negative because everything we consume, this is how we communicate to our inside self. We communicate through outside forms. And so the food we consume tells our body what to do. It tells our cells how to behave. It tells us how to react and how to grow and how to form and how to heal. This is all vital information. So when information comes from artificial, chemically laden food, our body doesn't know what to do with that. And as a defense mechanism, what does the body do? The body is built to defend you, and it creates fat. And it then encapsulates what it doesn't understand in fat. Why? So that it can deal with it later. So with a constant onslaught of a daily life like that, we just keep growing and growing and growing. And I don't know if you hear this very often, but people say to me, but I started eating clean, I started eating organic, and I started feeling very bad.
Yeah.
Well, of course, because when the onslaught stops of this chemical laden bad information, your body can now take care and clean house. It doesn't last very long, but people want to give up right away because they say, I started eating the right way, I started doing the right things, and I started feeling ill.
Mm-hmm.
And I just encourage them and I say, stick it out a little bit longer, you're going to get through it, and it's going to get better.
So basically they're detoxifying. Their body went
Oh,
into a
yes.
detoxification mode. Okay, so that's amazing. I really love how you started out. DNA or genes, and basically nutrition is information for our genes. So
It
that's
is.
a great way to like set the segue, because, you know, when I worked with clients in practice, the biggest thing I heard was, you know, does organic really matter? You know, what, I mean, what could GMOs possibly do to us? So you're going to set us straight today. You're going to tell us exactly what they do to us. So I love it.
Yes,
All right,
yes, we
let's
are
go.
gonna go through, we're gonna tackle this. If you have, you guys that are watching right now, if you have a notebook and a pen or pencil, get ready to take some notes down because this stuff is good. And
I'm ready.
I'm gonna keep it simple because,
All
you
right.
know, this is, we only have so much, you know. So we learned about DNA. We understand what genes are. We understand how they play a profound role in our utilization of nutrients from consumption all the way through elimination. So great. Now we have that basic foundation. Our goal today is epigenetics. Okay, so epigenetics is basically, in simple terms, it's the study of biological mechanisms that can switch genes on and off. So we have the ability to switch genes on and off. And that's a double-edged sword because it's going to go both ways. We have the ability to turn bad genes on, just like we have the ability to turn good genes off. And so our goal is going to be, we want to get all those good genes turned on, and we don't want the bad genes to start expressing, or if they've been expressing, we want to switch them off. So basically, in a nutshell, that is the definition of what epigenetics is. Now that we understand that, we are going to understand that epigenetics is everywhere. It's our environment. It's what we eat. It's pollution in the air. It's where we live. It is everywhere. There are many outside sources that affect genetic expression. And for today's purposes, we're going to talk about how nutrition affects epigenetic changes. So epigenetics is basically how the cells read the genes, okay? Again, the cells are reading the genes, so we need to equip the cells to do it the right way. We want them to understand what they're reading. We want them to bypass what we don't want them to express, and we want them to really target and turn on the good things that we want to express in our body and in our genes. Now, like I said, there are circumstances in life that cause genes to be silent, so they cause genes to be active. Like I said, what you eat, where you live, what you're exposed to, toxic measures, you know, plastics, BPA, endocrine disruptors, hormone disruptors, all these things play a very big role in how we affect our epigenetic expressions. People don't understand this. This is a one awesome thing right here. Exercise profoundly affects your epigenetic expression. Profoundly. And I wish people understood this more, because if we did, we wouldn't be so lackadaisical about our daily life. We would be getting our bodies moving. We would be getting our heart rate up. We would be getting this physical exertion that has such a big role and is so beneficial for our genetic expression. I want to say, I think I saw a paper that said 20 minutes of physical exercise actually increases our interleukin 10 production. And I mean, when we talk about interleukins, that's a lot about the immune response. Interleukins are mostly good, but they can be bad. So exercise dramatically affects the way we produce even immune responses and the way our genetics express themselves. So I wish more people got that, because if they got that memo, we would be definitely moving our bodies much more throughout the day, every single day.
Well, don't you feel, doctor, that most of the time when we're talking about health, it comes with this mindset of deprivation and, it's hard to do. And what we tried to do with food, I think through the years, is really change that mindset that food is fuel. It's not the enemy, because food was very demonized. And I love your idea on exercise, because I come from personal training. That's what my first degree is in. And people would come in with this attitude of torture. They would be like, okay, I'm here for your torture session. And now you're saying, if you only knew how much exercise influenced your DNA, your gene coding, and your communication to cells, you would love it. You would just go do it. So I think that's just a great way to kind of get people to change their mind on health and wellness. And, unfortunately, we've done a very poor job in the industry of fitness, making people love exercise. I mean, look at every commercial, right? Every like Nike commercial, where people are sweating, they're talking about like making it up the mountain. The person is just, it looks like they're in excruciating pain, and it does not make people want to exercise.
No.
So this is a great way to kind of get people on the mindset that exercise is beautiful and it's good. And so to actually change the gene expression, and then I'll let you carry on with exercise. Specifically, what do you recommend intensity wise, duration, frequency? What does that look like as a professional? What do you recommend to your clients to change that epigenetic expression?
So what I recommend to my clients, and exactly to what you said, people have this mentality that exercise is such a punishment, I also think that what is depicted on TV, I think that what's depicted on TV is people who exercise live at the gym. Nobody has the capacity to live in a gym. I mean, we're working individuals, we're spouses, we're parents, we work, whatever your job is. You might be a teacher, you might work as a first responder. Nobody can have the mental idea thinking that, how can I live at the gym to be healthy? But I think that's what is depicted today, is that you have to live there, right? Well, no. So what I express to clients and what I encourage them is I say 30 to 40 minutes, 3 times a week. You can start there. You can start 1 day a week and move up every week add another day until you get to 3 days. Now, that already makes a profound change. Now, depending on the results you're looking for, you may want more than a 3-day workout week. You may want to go to 4 or 5-day workout week. Again, it depends what you want to achieve, what your goals are. I definitely don't think working out for 2 hours is something that's good. I don't even, I think that's unnecessary. Right. But I'm talking about if we can just fit in 30 to 40 minutes, 3 times a week, your life is going to already dramatically change. And the way that I think about exercise, I go to the gym and I say, I'm going to reward myself. I'm not going to the gym because I had a brownie last night. I'm going to the gym because I want to reward my body. Do you know all the hormones, all the good feeling hormones you get released when you exercise? I mean, it's you get what runners experience as a runner's high, except you're getting it throughout your workout schedule. You're getting that high of feel-good hormones. You feel great. You have increased energy. You have increased focus. You're dedicated. And when I go, I say, I'm going to reward myself. I'm coming to have a great time. I'm going to reward myself. And when I'm done, when everyone's done, no one ever says, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, most people, it's hard to get started, but you're right. I mean, most people do go to the gym because they ate the brownie, right? And I got to burn this off. And the thing that I've been telling people for years, it has nothing to do with calories in or calories out. Like, calories are a thermogenic measure of heat. Like, you can't burn them, you can't save them. It just doesn't work that way. They're meant to fuel systems and functions in the body. And really what fuels the body systems is nutrition. And what you're saying is communication. So I love this. All right, continue. I'm sorry, I'll quit asking you questions. Go ahead.
Yes. Responding to your comment about the calories and how you explain it to clients, a nursing mom can burn 600 calories in one nursing section. That's equivalent as running a couple miles.
I'm in. No, I'm just kidding. I'm done.
Yeah, totally. Right? Completely. And And that goes exactly, you know, it's not, you know, what comes in and what goes out. They are thermal.
Mhm.
They're utilized. I mean, cell reactions take energy, and so you're burning, constantly burning. It takes energy to live. It takes that, you know, we're constantly doing these cycles in our body, converting
Yep.
minerals, vitamins, enzymes, everything.
Yep.
So
And it goes back to the statement that I've said from day one, count chemicals, not calories,
yes,
because your chemicals are going to influence your pathways, your inflammation, your genetic codes, your communication. An amazing, you know, just I'm so glad we're moving away from the 50 years of calorie counting. It's just, it was maddening to me. So good. New phase in health, epigenetics.
yes. So now, so we know, okay, that a diet rich in very high quality fats, it opens up the chromatin and improves mental ability via HDAC inhibitors, okay? So we know that there are certain compounds in the food that we consume that can protect us against cancer simply by adjusting methyl marks on our oncogenes or tumor suppressing genes. This goes back. Vital information, vital information. If we're eating fast, artificial food, it's not really conveying proper information to your body that your body can understand. We don't have a chemical deficiency. We don't have a toxic ingredient deficiency. So therefore, we don't need these things. We don't recognize these things. We do recognize real whole foods. We
Mhm.
do recognize things of that nature. That's where all of our vitamins and minerals and cofactors and antioxidants and polyphenols, all these amazing compounds, that's where they come from. They don't come from the burger through the drive-through.
Right.
We don't know what to do with that. And so health really begins even before you consider having a family. Health starts now. And it starts now so that the woman can produce healthy eggs and the man can produce healthy sperm so that then you can create a healthy baby. And with that mentality, you can pass on the least amount of weaknesses, because at the end of the day, we understand they are going to get passed down. And so
Mhm.
we want our next generation to be stronger than we were.
Right. And we now see that our kids are being born at like a 70% toxicity load, you know,
Oh,
300 toxins in the umbilical cord. And, you know, I know, well, I want to ask you about your skincare line later, because I know that was probably one of the reasons you developed it, because we put on 500
yes.
different chemicals before we leave the bathroom in the morning. So many things impact us. And, you know, so I want to get into the nitty gritty of epigenetics. And you talked about chromatin. Can you explain what that is? And you said it's opened by good fats. Why does that matter? Why do we want to open those pathways?
So it's more difficult to change expression on tight chromatins, okay? It's more difficult to do that. So if you can imagine DNA, I wish I would have had the opportunity to create some slides for visual purposes, because I love visuals. That's how I love to teach. And it just didn't work out at this point in time. So
Well, if you tell
when
me
you
what
put,
visual you need, I can find it real fast. So you just let me know
okay,
if you need a
well,
visual.
just like a double helix of
Okay.
DNA, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the double helix of DNA, so in that structure we have our chromatin, and it can be tight or it can be opened. And I think that with the fact of nutrition, with poor nutrition, we have very tight chromatin, and so nothing's going to change, and it's going to be pretty negative. It's going to be
There you
pretty
go.
negative, bad gene expression. There we go. Well, when we open up that chromatin, it now becomes more malleable so that the good expression that's there doesn't get overlooked and can actually be activated to go ahead and come out and express. I hope
Mm.
that's able to, I hope,
Yeah,
um,
it's tiny for you, but we can see it on our screen. But I think they get the gist. This is a
okay.
DNA strand. So the chromatin comes from where specifically at the DNA level?
The chromatin, so in the DNA structure, there is structure that is only for support, and then there is structure that actually includes the DNA. And yes, you are correct. For me, it is extremely tiny. Um, I'm trying to,
So go ahead and continue. We'll just put this up for visual, but just go ahead and explain, why does it matter? So you're saying chromatin when it's very tight, meaning not opened, or
Right.
okay.
It's when the chromatin is tight and when it's not open, you can't change it. It's almost sealed that way, okay? But because of what we know of DNA, we know that the way that nutrition impacts that chromatin. So I'm trying to keep my brain is like a computer with 50 million windows open, and I think so faster than what I can express it outwardly. Okay, so let me just take a deep breath here. Let me take a deep breath and compose myself, because this really excites me. This really excites me.
I'm ready.
All right. When we talk about genetic expression, we talk about altering DNA. And there are biological influences that do that. It happens through methyl groups, it happens through histone, and it happens through chromatin. So chromatin really provides the ability to change that expression, and chromatin needs to be made available to do that. And we are able to accomplish that through a good diet. I hope that's able to make sense. I'm really trying to keep this simple, because if I get more complicated, then I get thrown into more rabbit trails, and I know that we are limited, and I value your guys' time. I understand that it's Saturday, and so I just want to, get this as much as possible for you guys to just grasp a few concepts here. So my next point here, yes, health begins before conception. We went through that already. We want a healthy human being, healthy women, healthy men, so that we then can create healthy babies, and then we pass on the least weaknesses as possible, because we are passing on weaknesses. And so when we choose to have a family without getting things right first, getting those bad genes turned off and getting all the good genes turned on, it makes it very difficult. We already see that in pregnancy, a mom's lack of vitamin D impacts placental function, because it impacts methylation, and that already starts a domino effect. So you already mentioned how many toxic things our babies are born with today. They test the cord blood, and it's, at least 300 toxins or more. So a good thing, one of the best ways I thought, well, how can I convey this information here? And the best way I thought to do that would be, well, why don't you go through how you treat a client when they want to come see you? When a client wants to come see me and they say, I have A, B, and C problems, and I really just want a better quality of life, the first thing I do is I say, well, let's see what you look like. Okay, so we go ahead and we run a complete genetics exam. We get to see what the individual looks like. Genetic mutations come up, and we are able to focus on that. For example, I'm going to only touch on a few genes, and simple ones that are simple to explain. For example, on my own personal report, my GAD genes, GAD, G-A-D, on paper, they look pretty wrecked, okay? Now, GAD is responsible for breaking down glutamate into GABA. Glutamate is an excitotoxin. GABA is a calming neurotransmitter. However, because I've made changes in the past 11 years of my life, my genes look wrecked on paper, but in reality, they're switched off. And that's our goal, right? So when a client comes and says to me that they explain all these issues, we take a look here. And a common misconception is that practitioners want to treat the mutation. They want to treat the gene. And you really can't approach it that way. You really have to look at the person as a whole, listen to what they're experiencing. On paper, my genetics application specialist, she says, Ivy, you look pretty wrecked on paper, but I can't believe that your life is the way that it is. She says, you're not experiencing these things of, for example, your GADs, they're wrecked on paper, but they're not expressing for you because of the changes you've made in your life. Now, how important would it be to know as a parent if maybe one of your children were impaired at factor 5b Leiden. That is a blood clotting disorder. You have extremely thick blood. So that parent is going to now parent a little bit different. When that child gets hurt by blunt trauma, they're not going to want to wait it out and say, you'll be okay, bud, because of the thick blood and the higher risk of a factor 5b Leiden, you know, blood clotting and all that stuff. So that parent is not going to wait it out with that child. That parent may go quickly to get them checked out and make sure that everything's running okay. But if you have factor 5b Leiden, we want to nourish that. We want to make sure you have a adequate dose of vitamin C daily to keep that blood flowing freely. Or we want to make sure that maybe you take a clove of garlic daily, which also keeps blood healthy, keeps the flow nice and normal the way it's supposed to be, not too thin, not too thick, right? So we can see that you shouldn't treat the mutation, because just because it's showing up mutation on the report, that doesn't mean that it's expressing in the person's life. And you'll be able to know that by what the person expresses of what they're experiencing. Can they sleep at night? Can they calm down? Are they always hyped up? You know, that's GADS right here. You can't break down glutamate. You know, you're not getting your GABA the way you should. And so this really opens up a way for effective protocols, for effective suggestions that will actually work for you. We think about all the time, well, why does one person respond bad to this and then that person didn't respond bad to that? Well, it's their genetic makeup, but also their epigenetic expression. What is going on in the individual's body? And again, this can be so complicated. And I thought, can I do this discussion any justice? You know, can I do this discussion any justice? Because we're not going to be on here for hours talking about all the, you know, the nooks and crannies, the nitty gritty. You know, you asked me about chromatin and I drew a blank because I didn't get that. That deep into this. And I thought, wait, and so my mind was elsewhere and I'm, you know, trying to follow my notes, but, you know, it really is, it's complex, but yet it can be simplified and you can achieve a better quality of life. I mentioned factor 5b Leiden. It can affect your parenting. Even as an adult, it will affect the way you treat yourself when you come against, you know, some blunt trauma. If you get hurt and just have some blunt trauma anywhere in your body, you have factor 5b Leiden and you're aware of that because you went through this process and you know what your genes are, what you look like, what your mutations are, you know, you will care for yourself differently. You mentioned earlier at the very beginning, right? GMOs and glyphosate and toxic foods. There's a gene called now that we all call it the glyphosate gene. It's the PON1. And when a person is impaired at PON1, that metabolic pathway, you have a very difficult time eliminating pesticides from your body. So is it important to eat organic? Well, it's better, but for a person who's even impaired at PON1, it's vital for them because we know, you and I know, Tracy, that these things, the toxicity, the pesticides, all this stuff is cumulative, right? It all collects and collects and collects and collects. So a person that's impaired at PON1, I'm going to let them know for you and your protocol. And it's kind of very vital for you to make sure that you choose organic every opportunity that you're provided with because you're impaired at PON1. We have a mutation AGXT. All my AGXTs are all wrecked on paper as well, but they're not expressing thankfully in my life. But what's AGXT? Let's briefly go over AGXT. AGXT has more than 175 genetic mutations in that AGXT gene. It's found to cause hyperoxaluria type 1, which is a condition that's caused by an overproduction of a substance called oxalate. If an individual is showing up impaired at AGXT, we need to make sure that they don't have a very high oxalate diet. Why? They have a problem removing oxalates, these metabolic pathways that are included in removing oxalates out of the systems. these are impaired. The individual is not going to do well after eating kale or spinach or other high oxalate foods. And so this is just an amazing starting point. It's such a big piece to the puzzle. It's not the only one, but with knowing this, our care can be so much more effective.
Yeah, I'll say. This is like a map.
Yeah, it is like a map. It is like a map. And then, you know, you can even get way more complicated and way more crazy, but it's.
No, I love it. So I'm just going to summarize and see if I do okay. Because, you know, I mean, I know about epigenetics. I've watched Bruce Lipton. He gets way into it. Like, you have to be kind of like a NASA scientist to kind of follow Bruce at times. But so DNA, the genes, they are communicated by the nutrition we eat. Also, we could get into the thoughts we think, the toxins we're exposed to, right? Any type of communication will influence the DNA. We want our cells to read those genes, but bypass the stuff that it shouldn't be reading and get the vital information that our body needs so that it can work through the different pathways, such as the methylation, the chromatin, or the histones. Is that kind of what you're saying? Okay.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell. So this is quite a system. And there can be 3 different variations of communication, right? It can impact the histones, it can impact the chromatin, it can impact the methyl groups. So this can get very messy and a lot of little tentacles running out of it.
Yes.
And then from what you're saying is each gene can have a couple hundred different expressions and mutations depending on the pathway.
Right.
So, wow. this is right. Intricate. So when a person sees you, what's the average genetic code that you see? Like, what are some of the big ones you're seeing now? Like, are you seeing more common mutations in people because of environmental toxins or emotional toxins? Like, what would you say like your top 5 genetic mutations are that you see in people?
So I guess one of the top 5 is definitely our gene that we've named the glyphosate gene, which is the PON1. Which, I haven't seen anyone that's not impaired in PON1.
Wow.
Then again, I haven't seen thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people yet. I'm only 38, but what I've seen so far, everyone is impaired at PON1 so far.
Wow.
The
so
next
100% of your clients. That's a pretty good statistic though. I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of clients because you're brilliant, but I mean, even if it's not thousands, it's still 100%. So it's pretty impactful.
It is. And so our next one that we see pretty high is the G6PD. Although I want to say that I see it in a lot of my ethnic clients, whether they be African American, it's mostly in my ethnic clients that I will see a G6PD mutation. And G6PD means, for example, we know how beautiful vitamin C is, right? We know the power of IV treatments of vitamin C in killing cancers, tumors, and everything. Unfortunately, somebody impaired at G6PD is not going to be able to benefit from a treatment like that because they end up shunting all of the high doses of vitamin C into oxalates.
Really?
So, yeah, so unfortunately, so you see, but this is how we learn more and more. And so, you know, there was even a case where I had a client and at the time the results hadn't come in and, you know, we were definitely pushing and suggesting the very high doses of vitamin C, but then she came back with the G6PD. So we had to take that down, you know, to drop it down a notch because we didn't want a negative reaction. We don't want a negative feedback loop. And so this epigenetics, this is a feedback loop between our environment and our cells, our outside sources and our cells. And so we don't want to impact that in a negative way. Another one would be the AGXT, okay, which is people that have high hyperoxaluria. I'm seeing, you know, high oxalates in organic acids tests. So AGXT is definitely another one. I want to say as far as the top 5, those are definite. Oh, and then the factor 5V Leiden. You know, I wish they did this to new babies because factor 5V Leiden is not going to survive a synthetic vitamin K. And vitamin K comes with a black box warning. So
So that's the blood clotting factor, correct?
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right. That is we have, so
Now,
factor
can
5
you
Elitin.
connect those dots for people of why they wouldn't survive the vitamin K? Can you, like with the blood thinning and?
Okay. So being born is not a straight shot, right? When you're coming out of the birth canal, you go up and down and you twist and turn and you're born. That provides such a blunt trauma to the brand new baby, but the baby's equipped for that. That's why the baby has been putting on a 1/2 pound of brown fat in the last 5 weeks of pregnancy. The baby packs on, which is the size of an average apple, right? 1/2 pound of brown fat. Why? It makes them squishy and they can tolerate the impact of that trauma, okay? After the baby is born and that trauma, you have busted blood vessels, you have some squishing that took place, you have some bruising, some, black and bluing from being born. The blood is supposed to be, and it is, nice and thin so that it can carry those stem cells all throughout the body to repair the trauma from being born.
Wow.
When you give synthetic vitamin K, you sludge up that blood. Now, on a brand new baby that may not be factor 5 Elitin, they're going to experience a domino effect of, the kidneys and jaundice and the bilirubin, because now you just impaired the job by sludging up the blood. Like I said, the vitamin K comes with a black box warning. So a baby that they are not aware of that is factor 5 Elitin gets that synthetic vitamin K and it's game over. The baby already has thick blood. The baby's body is already doing its best to do its job to get those stem cells transported through the blood system, through all over the body to repair the trauma from being born. And you just sludge that blood up even more. And so it's game over for a baby like that.
Wow, that's amazing. That's the first time I've ever heard it explained that way with the vitamin K shot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Unfortunately, there's nothing natural about it. For goodness sake, it's an artificial vitamin K anyway, and then the aluminum, and then the formaldehyde, and then the mercury and everything else. And so everything else. And so, yes. And then parents are not told that comes with a black box warning. So, if they told you that, or if they told myself that, I would have made a different choice.
Right,
and
that's called informed consent, right?
It's called informed consent.
We don't get that privilege.
No, you don't get that, because then you would use your God-given brain and you would make a much different decision and a much different choice. So, so did that connect the dots?
That totally connected the dots.
Did I do it? Good.
Beautiful. Thank you. And like I said, I've heard all the implications and complications from the vitamin K shot, and people would always ask, like, why is the baby's blood thin? So this is great, because this is applicable stuff that you can utilize as practitioners when you hear this or you learn this, that you can take and relay to people and allow them to make that reflective, informed decision about that black box warning. Like, okay, have you had your baby tested for this mutation? If not, and we've been advocating for testing like this too, and everyone's like, well, it's not possible. It's just not possible. So my question is, once you shut the expression off, let's say, for example, you have the person with the G6PD, right? Am I saying that correctly?
Sure.
They're the ones that wouldn't benefit from the vitamin C therapy. But what if through lifestyle and 5 years of organic eating, and you have them all in balance, and then they get really sick and they would need maybe an IV vitamin C? Would they then benefit to it, or would it turn that gene expression back on?
So when an individual like that, and after certain years or certain amount of years of, making really good positive choices and sticking to it and being committed to it, people are always afraid and say, I can't be perfect. I don't know if I can make these changes and follow it through 100% of the time. Nobody is ever 100% of the time perfect, ever, at all. I just had a bowl of brownie and ice cream last night. But I mean,
hence your comment about the gym.
Yeah, it's not going to be the death of me. And so when we talk about a person like that with an expression of G6PD, maybe that person will never be able to tolerate an IV dose of 50,000 milligrams of IV vitamin C,
Hmm.
but they can definitely now benefit from at least 5,000 milligrams of IV vitamin
Okay.
C,
I
you
see.
know, and so for them, we're not going to want to do it an IV treatment every day. You're going to maybe want to space it out to once a week. And
Hmm.
so that you can get the benefits in a different way, as opposed to someone who can tolerate an IV drip of 250,000 milligrams of vitamin C, you know,
Hmm.
you can get that benefit. You have to spread it out and achieve it slower, but you can get it. And so you
Okay.
can affect that. They're not going to shunt all of that into oxalates now, where then oxalates distribute all throughout the body and into joints and tissues and all kinds of things like that. So we can do it in a way to where the body will react in a very positive way to that. And it just may be, Tracy, that that individual may never benefit or may never get to the possibility of having like an IV drip of 100,000 milligrams, but that's okay. As long as
Right.
we can get a therapeutic dose for that person, whatever they can tolerate, as long as we can get their therapeutic dose built up without a negative reaction, I call that a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can I throw some questions at you?
Sure, don't stump me again, but let's see.
Well, I didn't mean to go into crumpets, but it's just fascinating me because that's how my brain works. So I'm already like, okay, histones, serotonins, I'm like sirtuin pathways. But talking about specifically the coronavirus, okay, how did you see epigenetics with our society in general and the I don't want to even say the pandemic, which it was made really into a pandemic. How do you
Sure.
think that connects for us? Like, what can we do better coming out of this? I know lifestyle will impact it, but do you really think the fear of everything really impacted the epigenetics? Can you see that kind of happening?
Of course, because there's a goal to fear mongering, but even throwing that aside, when you're made to fear, you have an endless supply of cortisol in the blood now, right? We
Mm-hmm.
all know. I mean, this is just a domino effect. And so when you're made to fear and you've got an endless supply of cortisol in the blood, you're putting pressure on the pancreas because our cells really need the sugar to function, but now it's being dumped into the blood because it's either fight or flight. You either address the situation or you run from the threat. So people are living in fear 24/7 because they're locked up in their houses. They're not allowed to go outside. You can't be with your loved ones. You can't love on each other and hug each other because you can't spend time together. We know that hugging releases hormones,
Mm-hmm.
this feel good endorphins and all that stuff. And so not only are people socially isolated, they're they're emotionally put into this fear status. Well, that lowers your immunity.
Mm-hmm.
That affects your epigenetic expression. Somebody that went into this little pandemic robust, and then 2 months out from being locked up in your house, and you go out and you feel like a pretty weak individual.
Yeah. So that's amazing because people just don't realize the impact that it can have, not just,
No.
not just now, but long-term impact. When it turns on a gene because you were so scared about a pandemic or plandemic, however you want to say it. But now, what's the impact later down the line? How did it affect all the pathways that you spoke about before? So
Right.
I love this. This is amazing. Some of the questions that are popping up are, how do we get tested? Um, what kind of genetic testing does everybody need? Should it be a full panel? Should it be raw data? Are there sources that you personally use?
Okay. So here's the way that I think is the best way to do this. When clients contact me and they say, well, I had my practitioner, test me for MTHFR mutation, and this is the report they gave me, and the report only lists MTHFR. I thought, okay, well, why didn't you just include the whole report? Why are you just giving the individual the information on one gene, right? Because it's just not one gene. It's not one mutation. It's how they all work together. And
Mm-hmm.
so in my brain, I never even think about running something like that for one genetic mutation. I want to see all of them. And so
Mm-hmm.
you can try companies like Ancestry DNA. There's 23andMe, although people are having a lot of problems with that because now they've sold your information, right? So now people are not happy with that.
Yeah.
But there are other options. And my genetics application specialist that I work with, her name is Sterling Hill. She runs mthfrsupport.com. She has a team that has built an app to where when you get genetic information back, when you initially send out your sample and you get back this raw data, it's exactly that. It's called raw data. It's just letters and numbers, and you can't tell anything from anything. And so you then run it through an app that goes ahead and gets all these SNP IDs for you and the gene names for you. That's where the gold is. That's what we want to see. We want to see that kind of report. And so there's also companies like Self Decode where you can get a DNA kit from them. And so with these companies is, to my understanding, with these DNA tests, is they run the samples through chips. And so some companies have more intricate chips than others. And so they're, like Self Decode, their chip is pretty extensive. And I'm even considering them, but I don't know that I can actually get that raw data and run it through and have it be compatible with the app that I'm working with. So, aside from that, you also have to make sure that it's compatible with the apps that are available to run this raw genetic data through, so yeah, I mean, basically it's that simple. You can get a genetic testing kit, send in your sample, you will get raw genetic data back, but then that's when your practitioner will go ahead and run it through software and get information that's readable, to a human person.
Right. Instead of all these little codes, it's kind of like a bunch of addresses, right? And when you guys run it through the app, you kind of get a map and you see where the expression is happening and what path we need to walk down first. So it is good to meet. I mean, I love that people are self-serving, right? They go out and try to figure out health on their own, but sometimes you do need somebody to help you, like a coach such as yourself, just to, even lay a foundational groundwork and then, just have somebody to check in with. And so a couple of questions, because I mentioned it. Someone said, where can we get your products? So I know you have a skin line, correct? And I think they're interested in hearing about that, and maybe also your contact information so people can get in touch with you as well.
Okay, well, thank you. So this actually ties into our talk today about genetics. So I have 5 children, and my second child, who's now 11, when he was born, in about 6 weeks, I had my postpartum checkup, and he looked like a little burn victim from the waist down. And I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know then what I know now. And so now I understand that our genetic mutations passed on to our children. And so they will exhibit side effects of what you get from possibly getting injured by a vaccine, except they're not vaccinated. But because myself and my spouse were fully vaccinated as children, all of that genetic mutated DNA got passed on to our children. And so they all express different things in different ways. And so that's when our organic skincare business was born, because as I was going out and looking to what I could put onto my brand new 6-week-old baby, there were things that I was bringing home and I was looking into, and I says, well, this is organic, but then why did they put this in here? Right. I could have done without this or without these few ingredients. And so that is basically how the business started as far as that goes. And I just needed better options for my kids, where at the time I couldn't really find any, that were effective or that just had an ingredients list that I could read and I could pronounce. And at least it was less than 7 ingredients. And, there wasn't that much of it available back then. Now things are great, and you have options where you have some really clean companies, and then you have some that just greenwash and are not what they say they are. So, back then, that's why we started that company. And then it just snowballed. It snowballed from me making soap to then making creams and lotions and hair conditioner and facial lotions, because then I just wanted to take care of my children's needs. But then I had, older women coming to me and saying, well, I would really love a facial serum. And I'd say, oh, well, I don't make one of those, but I'm sure you could find a really good one. And they're like, well, we don't really want to get it from somewhere else. We just would prefer if you did it, because we kind of like the way your brain is and your, your standards for the ingredients that you pick and what your company stands behind. And so it just snowballed into just me creating and formulating other products. I went back to formulating school online and just learned from forums and cosmetic groups and, cosmetic chemistry and all kinds of things like that. And so the name of our business is Adonai Soap, and we actually have a Facebook page, and you spell that Adonai and then SOAP. So Adonai Soap. We have a Facebook page. We are working on launching our new website. And so that should be ready pretty soon, possibly by the end of next week, which is very exciting. So that is how that got started. And ever since then, my kids look great now. I'm focused on their...
You're actually like 67, aren't you? You just look that good.
Yeah, I'm knocking right on 40's door. I'll be 40 very soon, but you know what? 40 is the new 30, so I'm not even worried about it.
Amen. So that's awesome. So also, do you take clients? Can you take virtual clients? How does that work? And can you give us some contact information?
I do. Yes, I do take clients. And I work with clients outside of my state. I'm out west in Wyoming, and I have clients from Georgia and Utah and places like that. So yes, we take clients and we do this. We have appointments, and we go through everybody's genetic profile. We go through the protocol that is tailored just for you. You can find me on Ivy Pruss on Facebook. I have a personal page there, Ivy Pruss on Facebook. You can message me through there. We are also getting my website for my practice up as well. So we are working on that. So all these things are just happening at one time, and it's really exciting. It's really exciting.
Yeah, and I know that the Weiner Wellness Center was looking to connect with you as well for your skincare line, so they might be able to find it there very shortly, so that would be wonderful. So I'm excited. This has been a really great talk. Do you want to finish with anything on epigenetics to kind of bring it all in? I've kind of scrolled through the questions here. The people are applauding your skincare line. You must have some friends and lovers of your product on our live stream. So
thank you. So I just want to encourage people, when we talk about health, people right away, they get so afraid because it can be so daunting, right? And so I just want to say two things. Number one is, you don't have to worry about taking care of all the different systems in your body, right? We're composed of so many different systems that make us a human being. And I like to make it simple like this. If you can just focus on taking care of one cell, okay? One cell we know grows on to become part of a group of cells. That group of cells goes on to be part of tissue. That tissue goes on to become part of an organ. And an organ goes on to be part of a system, which is essentially you. If you can just focus on taking care of one cell, you're going to be good. What do you have to do to take care of one cell? You keep it clean and you feed it. It's like all these kids games, right? They want to grow a little virtual pet. What is it always doing? It's filthy and it's crying because it's hungry. So you take care of a cell. You keep it clean and you feed it. You keep it healthy. So the next thing, that's the number one thing I want to say. If you just focus on just taking care of one cell, that means all of your choices, all of your habits, all of the good things you do, you're going to affect that one cell that later is going to become part of your body, part of a system, part of tissue and organs, okay, and groups of cells. If you just target it by just saying, all I have to do is take care of one cell, you're going to be great. The next thing I want to say is that genetics only load the gun. They don't pull the trigger. Your daily choices are going to pull the trigger. And I heard an analogy this way, and I thought, wow, when I read that, I said, that's awesome. I'm going to have to share that. It said, imagine your life as a very long movie, right? And in that movie, your cells are your actors, okay? Your DNA, that's your script, and it's instructions for what the actors are going to do. Remember, actors are your cells, right? Well, genetics is the screenwriting, okay? So that makes epigenetics the director, all right? The director can tweak scenes, can remove dialogue. They alter the movie for better or worse.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And yeah, I mean, you guys, you can achieve this. I mean, you can make better choices. You can have a better quality of life. You can improve your lifestyle greatly, and you can improve the outcomes. You don't have to wake up feeling that you have to drag throughout the whole day. You know, you can wake up feeling ready to tackle your day.
Mm-hmm.
Wake up feeling robust, with vigor, with life. You can get that. And so if there's anything, I just want to encourage people that you can definitely achieve this. It's not as difficult as it may seem.
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes they try to scare us with the whole genetic talk,
Mm-hmm.
and to take away the hope factor that once
Right.
you have a genetic whatever, it's forever. You're going to feel
No.
sick forever. You're going to express forever. And you've basically told us today that although you can look a mess on paper, you can shut that off and live a
Yes.
full, healthy, vibrant life, regardless what that paper says, right?
Right.
So
Yep.
treat the patient, not the paper. That's
That's
pretty much
right.
it. But I loved your
However,
analogy. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and the paper just gives me a very good idea about you. That's what it does. It gives me a good idea about you. It lets me know what I can do and what I can't do, you know? And so it's amazing. It's wonderful.
Well, that's perfect. So I really appreciate your time, and I enjoyed this a lot. I learned a lot. You gave some really great clinical pearls. The vitamin K, you know, your movie script, I love that. It made it really simple for people to understand. And the best thing I think you put out today was hope. That in a world where we are fear-mongered into pharmaceutical suppression, symptom
Right.
repression, you don't have to do that. You can literally turn genes on that need to be on and turn off genes that should not be on. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your expertise. And I'll look forward to your skincare line, because I'm going to go look at that now.
You're very welcome. Again, Tracy, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope that for all the people watching, you guys were able to grab content and just take it to empower you and educate you on what you can do and things like that. So I'm grateful to have been part of this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
you
This was
guys
great.
enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you, doctor. And yes, Ruth Parker said she is great. You are great. All right,
Thank you.
guys. So enjoy this video over and over again. Dr. Ivy Pruss, right now I'm pronouncing your name
Yes.
correctly.
Yes.
Get in contact with her. You can find her on Facebook, and hopefully we'll see your products real
Yes.
soon. So thank you, doctor. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
See ya.